Welcome to the Irish NFL Show's Week 7. Welcome to the Irish NFL Show's Week 7 recap in association with quinnbet. I think we had a bit of a false start there, flag on the play, but we keep going because we're live on YouTube, Facebook, X, and on IrishNFLShow.com. Good evening to everyone who's tuning in to the live stream. You can watch us later, of course, on YouTube or pick up the podcast on your platform of choice. If you do so, please hit that like button the way Micah Parsons hits a quarterback, and we will love you for it. By this point of the season, I know we really should know better. The Cowboys game is a shootout every single week. The Niners seem to be able to win games no matter what players they put on the field and no matter who's in the treatment room. And win or lose, Jackson Dart-led Giants are always box office. Kieran, we'll get to that in a few minutes. We'll give you some time to just settle into it and decompress a little bit. We're going to start, though, in London, where the Rams and Matthew Stafford put on a record-setting show at Wembley Stadium. Kieran Boyle and Kieran O'Donovan with me, Conor Brophy, to discuss this and all of the Week 7 games on our Talking Points show. Kieran O'Donovan, you were there. You saw it in the flesh. 5 touchdown passes for Matthew Stafford, first quarterback ever to do that in London. A hat-trick for Davante Adams, ex of Green Bay, of course. Couldn't have gone much better, really, for the Rams, who only arrived on Saturday morning. A lot of people raising their eyebrows and going, geez, that's awful late to be arriving in before an international game. Now every team's going to be arriving at the last second, walking off the plane and straight onto the field because the Rams hit it.
Yeah, we discussed all that in our pre-game kind of report on the sideline. It was, look, what an amazing place to be in Wembley Stadium for to watch a game. It was the first time I've seen a live game in Wembley. I've been there for the tour, but have to say what a facility. We talk about Croke Park with 80,000, 90,000 capacity in Wembley, and you know it is an immense stadium. It was a privilege to be there yesterday. But yeah, look, we talked before the game about hoping that we'd see 2 offenses clicking, and essentially one of them did, and one misfired. And I wouldn't even say that the Rams were firing on all cylinders either. It's just that Stafford came out, and in fairness, they were quick out of the blocks, and he was really, really efficient in his first 2 drives. We talked about whether Davante Adams would get in on more of the action because that safety blanket of Puka Nacua was removed, and that did prove to be the case. He had but he was very efficient. He didn't light it up on the yards front or anything like that. But three touchdown catches, and his last one was particularly impressive. It was that one-handed grab was it was classic Davante Adams. So that on that offensive side of the ball, the Rams, they really, really. They sprung to life in a lot of ways without getting Kyren Williams in the run game going. But on the other side of the ball, a huge amount of questions to ask about Jacksonville. The offense, it did stutter. You had that high point, that I suppose that little shining light in the Travis Hunter performance. But I got to ask Liam Cohen about that, and I was asking him whether that was a result of a planned package, or whether it was just the fact that nobody else was at the races, because Brian Thomas Jr., even though he looked like he might have been carrying a knock or two, his body language, he came off the pitch twice with his head down, and he didn't look like he was happy to be there at all. So whereas the Jags came in 4-2 with a lot to be happy about, now you're kind of thinking, Jesus, did they, looking at what the Chiefs have done since that game, did they get the Chiefs just in the nick of time? Because their record could have been looking a lot different. And I think the feeling about the Jags now is turning it. It's the winds of change are afoot, and it's not all rosy in Jacksonville at the moment.
Well, no better man to tell us how lacking in rosiness, it might just be in Jacksonville at the moment. Then our man on the spot, Kieran Boyle, who's been listening to the radio jocks sound off. What have they been saying? Because I don't imagine that they're happy. Second year in a row now that the Jags, who were supposed to be the London team, quote unquote, have laid an egg on their travels.
Yeah, it's almost going back to the Jags of old now. There's a lot of talk, and I mentioned it last week, that the Jags might have peaked against the Chiefs, and that was their shining moment of the season. And there's a lot of talk. Obviously, I mean, McVay looks like a genius, how he just chopped the trip in half, staying over in Baltimore, and then treating it like a West Coast game, almost just a quick 6-hour flight. But it's a lot of nervous people in Jacksonville. There's a lot of questions still about Lawrence, and I will say this: he's not Cohen's man. He's not Cohen's man. So there
was just as you say, Kieran, and sorry to cut across you, but there was one highlight that I remember them calling out in the commentary as well. It was Rich Eisen and I think Jonathan Vilma on the call. There's just a throw it's a screen pass. It's a 7-yard pass, and he dirts it. And you find yourself, sure, Liam Cohen and the other coordinators that have played with Lawrence over the years must feel like smashing the headset on the ground when that happens. Like you just cannot do that at this level. And he can make brilliant throws and make brilliant decisions, and he's such an all-world athlete that when he does stuff like that, it just makes you want to lose your mind.
Yeah, I mean, the Jags are not in a position to be throwing points away or to be giving up yards at all. I mean, they can, they're in a situation right now, 4-3, all of their own making, and they're almost going back to the Jags of old. It's just poor execution. ETN only had 44 yards on the ground. You knew when he was struggling in the first half that was probably it. And it wasn't.
You called this game one. You called this when it was going well for the Jags. You said if you stop Travis Etienne, the Jags are done.
Yeah, I mean that's how it was. 44 total yards. The Jags were a non-factor in the first half, barely a factor in the second half. And you do wonder why, like Kieran said, you do wonder why they don't bring Hunter into the game more. You saw what he did with that one play. I mean, Thomas Jr., there's something going on there. I don't know if there's synergy missing with the quarterback, but there's definitely questions about this whole Cohen-Lawrence relationship. 7 trips into scoring positions, and 6 of them were punts. I mean, they only got 7 points out of all those, which is pretty terrible. I mean, I know the weather conditions weren't great, but I mean, they're used to rain in Jacksonville. And it's 3 of 15 on third downs. You're not going to win anything. You're not going to get competitive or even be close to anybody with those kind of figures. So a terrible
what
performance.
Happened to defense that we were talking up at the start of the season and that was lighting it up, getting turnovers every week. I mean, I know that wasn't going to last, but we'll get to the Bears, who are currently in a similar zone where they're relying on turnovers to win games to a certain extent. But I mean, it just got torn apart. Bearing in mind that the Rams are down Puka Nacua, their top receiving threat, you would have expected an awful lot more from a very vaunted Jacksonville secondary in particular.
Yeah, and they couldn't lay a hand on the Rams yesterday. I mean, Stafford was thrown to everybody. He was giving everybody time. I know Devontae had 3 touchdowns, but he was giving the ball to everybody who was available. But yeah, no turnovers yesterday. I think the magic might have worn off. Again, did they peak too soon in the season? Was it a September swoon almost? They also had 358 total yards, but they did nothing with it. I mean, that's the other thing. They had the ball for quite a long time and just were not able to do anything on third downs. It's a very, very worrying performance. Just from listening to the radio locally and local beat writers, they are very nervous and very concerned that this is going to turn into one of those lost seasons. Cohen, I know, is a first-timer, so it's not as bad as the Urban Meyer days or even before that, but there's a lot of question marks. There's a lot of nervousness going around, and I'm going to be looking closely at the Cohen Lawrence relationship going forward, because as the season goes on, if Lawrence doesn't get it together soon, that's not his man. That's not Cohen's man. It's not Gladstone's man. So they're already writing up a playbook for who could be looking at in the draft or even free agency in the future. So nervous times in Jacksonville. I mean, what can you say? It was a non-event, a non-contest.
Well, you take Mac Jones over Trevor Lawrence now, and Mac Jones led the 49ers to another win over the weekend. Kieran O'Donovan, I called this wrong, as a lot of us did. I thought losing Fred Warner would be the straw that broke the back of the 49ers defense, and that would pave the way for a very frisky Falcons team, who are up and down, but who, when leaning on Bijan, have generally been able to get it done. That script was flipped by the Niners. They were largely able to contain him, which was fatal to the Falcons' chances. But they also got Christian McCaffrey going in a big way. I mean, he's been great for them all season in terms of his total contribution, rushing and receiving. But Now he's going for 4.5 yards a clip, and he is running between the tackles, and that offensive line is opening big gaps. And when they get him going and they George Kittle back, and that obviously helps along the line with what he's able to do blocking as well as everything else he contributes. They're back to looking like the 49ers of something like old, even with all the injuries, and they're a handful.
I think the 49ers faithful in Ireland who love listening to us, I think, and I think they're getting a good kick out of us picking against the 49ers every week. You did, in fairness, but
Brian O'Leary as well.
At this point, they might want us to keep picking against them, because maybe we're that kind of the lucky I don't know what you call it, a curse, or I don't know what way you want to put it, but it was a case of break glass in emergency and pull out Christian McCaffrey last night. I mean, every time you saw him with the ball, he was electric. It was fantastic, and I mean, he accounted for over 200 yards last night. He what was it, 129 and 2 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground, and he was their leading receiver with 72 yards as well. It was a game where they didn't need 500 yards to win this game. It was coaching, because you look at it, the defensive side of the ball, where we talked about the Lions last year and the next up mentality. I mean, that seems to be what it is in San Francisco and under Robert Saleh, in fairness, who's rejuvenated back in San Fran, and we've spoken at length about that as well. But just look at what the Falcons were able to produce last week with their big players in Drake London, Bijan Robinson, and they were just non-existent last night. Bijan only had 40 yards. Darnell Mooney was their lead receiver, but Drake London only had 42. So it was just a completely, they were flipped on their head. And you mentioned it, they're very up and down, and there's no team like the Falcons in terms of peaks and troughs at the moment. But huge credit to San Francisco, and they're just keeping themselves in the mix here for this division and beyond.
Kieran Boyle, I don't know what to make of the Falcons. One week they seem like they have something in the 2 rookie pass rushers. The next week they're non-existent. Penix looks great one week. The only thing that's been consistent is Bijan, and as we saw, if you get a hand on him and if you can get some kind of containment on him, nothing works.
Yeah, it's we like you said, we don't know what team this is right now. I mean, they went out and they got their handed to them by the Panthers 30-0, and then they put in a couple of decent performances after that. I knew fairly well that they wouldn't get a result out of going to San Francisco. This is a team that's just been reeling right now. Injuries left, right, and center, and they just put everything on McCaffrey and said, save us, do what you need to do to save us, and he did. Over 201 yards from scrimmage in total. I mean, this is just a phenomenal performance, and just it's great to see him back doing what he does best. Rushing with the ball, receiving. But I think this is just who the Falcons are. I think they're just going to be one of those teams that will put in a great performance and then lay an egg the next week, because how do you account for Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Bijan having 40 total yards? This is a guy that's been putting up 150, 160 regularly. Algier, I know he's not a RB1, but he only had 16 yards, and even Drake London wasn't a factor either. You have to factor in going to Santa Clara for a team right now, and I think the Falcons were the wrong team. For them, it was the right team for the Niners. Just you wonder about. I'm not going to question their heart or anything like that, but you got to question the motivation, going into a primetime game in a beautiful stadium that will be hosting the Super Bowl and just not be competitive. But then again, Penix, and I've said it before, he's the type of quarterback who could be very erratic. The ball, he can find people real well, or he can spray the ball around the place, not too dissimilar to Trevor Lawrence. But I don't know if he's the guy, and he's not the guy to lead this team. I think they've still got some questions with quarterback. But that's a Fontenot question to figure out. But I just, I think just erratic play all around kind of typifies the Falcons right now. And the 49ers just dealt with it perfectly. It was competitive for a little while, but you never really got the impression that the Niners were going to let that go. And it was a great performance. And, seeing players in their prime and seeing people who have been injured lately and haven't really had the opportunity to play that much, it's great to see McCaffrey out there. And it was even great to see Kittle back out there too. The game's better for it. And the league's better for it. So, I'm not going to say I was glad the Niners won because I had no stake in the game, but I did pick the Niners to win that one.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, 3 or 4 weeks ago, you would have looked at that Niners team and said, this is going to be another lost season. And, what are you going to do with all those players on the treatment table? Now you're saying home Super Bowl is within their grasp if they keep going the way they're going, and if they get everybody back, it's all ahead of them. And what a great place to be for them. Again, a team that we dinged for the terrible draft pick and all the capital they gave up in Trey Lance. Now they're sitting pretty with Brock Purdy and arguably the best backup quarterback in the league, certainly in terms of his win-loss column over the past couple of weeks in Mac Jones. We move on to Giants-Broncos next. Not so much a miracle in Mile High as misery in Mile High for the Giants. Maybe a miracle in Mile High for the Broncos. Kieran O'Donovan, we'll give Kieran Boyd just a little bit more time to catch his breath. 33 points in that fourth quarter for the Broncos. The only team that's conceded more in a single quarter is, of course, the Chicago Bears, who managed to concede 34 to the Detroit Lions in the 2007 game. We won't even talk about that one. I'm still getting over it. But it was all going so right for the Giants, and then it all suddenly went desperately wrong. But let's be fair, it went wrong because the Broncos put something right in that fourth quarter in a big way.
Yeah, and look, to start off with, talk about the Broncos over the last 3 weeks. However dour the game was last week in London, they came out the right side of a terrible clash. The Eagles game, they were down by over 2 touchdowns at one point, I think, in the fourth quarter. It was close to it. They came out the right side of that. They never gave up on it. And again last night, this is one of the craziest endings to a game that we've ever seen. And before we get into the Giants, and I know we will at length, you have to say that there's something to that. In any of the 3 games, you couldn't say that the Broncos were spectacular from start to finish, bar maybe their pass rush against the Jets. But Alex Ferguson was, he always gave a lot of juice to being able to win games when you're not playing at your best. And there's something to that Broncos team and the way they're able to pull results out. But this was all about the collapse in the Giants last night. And I got on the plane. I was saying to Kieran before we came on air, I got on the plane last night, and the game was over. Essentially, the Giants had it in hand. And then we landed in Cork. I looked at my phone, and there was about 70 odd messages about this game. I could not believe what was after happening. And even watching back the highlights this morning, it was nuts. It was nuts. And a point on, I guess, Jude McTominay. McTominay, someone that as an Irish NFL, as the Irish NFL show, we obviously have a huge invested in emotionally in Jude McTominay, Charlie Smith, and Mark McNamee, all these guys who you just wish the best for, and all you want for them to do is succeed, and they've worked their tails off to get to the positions that they've been in, including Jude McTominay. But he's facing the harsh reality of the NFL and what it is like to be a kicker at that top level, because the margin for error, I think, in that position on a team starts off at nil. It really is nil. If you can't kick your extra points, I think you can expect to be looking for a job.
It's a killer. And as you say, I saw his locker room interview after the game, Jude McAtamaney, and it's not fun to be in that position when you're answering for 2 missed extra points that ultimately were the difference in your team winning and losing the game, or at least viewed narrowly. Obviously, there's other reasons why the team lost the game. It's a team game, and you win and lose as a team. You could talk about that Jackson Dart interception. You could talk about a terrible penalty given away by the Giants on the Broncos' final drive. Those were just as big contributory factors. But the problem is, as you rightly say, Kieran, that kicking, it's not a premium position in the NFL. The success rate for extra points is 95.8%. It oscillates a little bit from year to year. There's a little bit of volatility in it, but it's usually somewhere in the 93 to 96% range. So let's say you score 3 touchdowns a game and you're on a decent team. That's 51 touchdowns. Call it 50 touchdowns over a year. So how many extra points do you get to miss to be an average kicker in the NFL? 2 in a season, to be bang average. That's what GMs are looking for, and that's what coaches are looking for. That's the minimum standard. That's an average kicker. They can go and get a guy off the street, and there's lots of undrafted kickers. Giants, of course, have Younghoe Koo on their practice squad, who was booted out of Atlanta. He was one of the best kickers in the NFL, or was perceived as such a couple of years ago. It's a harsh position to play football. That's not excusing the abuse that Jude McAtamaney is getting on social media, which is disgusting, and unfortunately is something that people in high profile positions have to deal with, whether they like it or not. That doesn't make it right, but he knows the rules. He knows how tough the game is, and we wish him the best, because we're proud to see Irish athletes succeed at the top level. But at that top level, as Jerry Glanville said memorably all those years ago, I've thrown out the quote on this show before, NFL stands for not for long.
Yeah, and it's our responsibility to look at this 2 ways. You look at it from, firstly from as an Irish person and as a human being, and you say, this guy is not having a good day today. and you wish his family all the best. You hope that he can recover mentally. There might be a long road back. He's going to get kicked down the ladder now after last night, and it might be a long road back. But it's not to say that it's impossible for him to get back to where he is. And you just wish him all the best. As I said, as an Irish sports fan, but you have to look at it objectively as well. And Jimmy Johnson put it very simply. He had a kicker who was having mental struggles back in the 90s during the great Cowboys run. Came to him on the sidelines after missing a couple of kicks and said, I'm just lacking a bit of confidence at the moment. And Jimmy Johnson said that's all he needed to hear, and he went off and got himself another kicker. It is that cutthroat. It's not like you're going to get a quarterback where you're going to get time to develop. Those kickers are a dime a dozen, and if you're missing the extra points, that's just it's a matter of fact. But look, having said that, and I don't want to go on about it for too long, that's 2 points. I mean, that wasn't the beginning and the end of the losing of the game. I mean, they were 3 scores up essentially with under 5 minutes to go. There was some terrible decisions made. And look, Jackson Dart threw a pick, and the margin for error is bigger for a young quarterback. He's going to get forgiven for that, and it's going to be seen as a moment that he'll have to learn from. But again, I wouldn't put it all down to that either. I'll hand it over to Kieran to talk about the clock management, play calling, everything else. There was a huge amount that went into losing that game last night.
Yeah, he's gone with the bag over the head. I'm sorry for your troubles, Kieran Boyle. I had Brian O'Leary on the therapy couch earlier this morning. I was doing my best Fraser Crane. I'm listening on the instant reaction show as we discussed this game. But Kieran, like as we were saying, if before the game you were told that the Giants would come out just the wrong side of a 1-point defeat, you were going, well, there's a 7.5 point spread going into this game. Very few people were expecting the Giants to win. You just don't expect them to put themselves in such a good position and throw it away. And as well as the Broncos played in that wild fourth quarter, they were given the opportunities to do so. And it's such a strange one because you go and watch it back. Like that fourth quarter is a story all of its own. It's like the famous, 3-minute final, cup final at Wembley when Liam Brady scores twice and Arsenal come from behind to win the cup final, turn the game on its head. The Broncos come roaring back. The Giants put a stop to it almost right away. And it just goes nuts over the final 3 minutes of the game. But there's so many decisions that the Giants will want to have back. As Kieran O'Donovan rightly said, it certainly ain't all on Jude McAtammany's shoulders. And it's not all about those 2 missed extra points. And it's not fair to characterize it that way. There's plenty of blame to go around on the Giants side.
No, you're right. And I've had plenty of time to digest it and think about it. And I've found solace and comfort in the magical words of Rock and Roll Hall of Famer Ronan Keating, who said, "Smile, an everlasting smile. A smile can bring you dear to me. Don't ever let me find you down, because that would bring a tear to me. It's only words, and words are all I have to take your heart away." Anyway, after all that, yeah, I mean, like I said, it all came down to coaching. Now, you saw in the group chat yesterday, it was just paranoia and fear from the Giants fans in the group chat because we've been there and we've seen it all. I certainly didn't think at 26 or 25-8, whatever the score was, with 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, I didn't think it was over. I don't think any Giants fan did because we have so much PTSD built up. And this is just another performance on par with the Deshaun Jackson, Matt Dodge punt of the Trey Junkin 2002 January 5th game where they lost to the Niners after having a huge lead. But it's all down to coaching. It's just when you look at it, and I called it last week when I predicted the Giants would win. I said that the Broncos are having trouble scoring, and they did. They couldn't score. They couldn't get near a first down for the first 3 quarters. The Giants were playing it perfectly, doing exactly what they got to do. And then little by little, the mistakes start creeping in. I mean, the pick, we can say what we want about the pick, but there's no way a team should be able to get 33 points or allowed to get 33 points in that fashion. It's all down to coaching. I'm still in shock, but I'm not really because I've seen it before. We've all gone over the figures and the stats and the 1,602 games in the league with teams leading by 18 or more with 6 minutes to go. We've seen all that stuff, so I'm not going to rehash it. But it's the only thing that's given me solace and comfort at this stage is we have a quarterback and a running back that can be built on. The coaching staff won't be around next year, and I don't care about this reputation that Dable has as a quarterback whisperer, or he did this with Josh Allen, or he did that with somebody else. This team and this quarterback needs to raise the stink that's going around this team for the last 10 years. I thought he would have gone after the Munich game last year. He survived that. I've no idea how. But this has to be it this year. I didn't think Bone would be fired this morning because there's just nobody else to fill in the gap. So it's just going to be Let's see what we can get out of the quarterback for the rest of the year. Let's get Scalabo some experience in the league. But I mean, the Broncos were beaten. They were done. There was sound bites from Pat Surtain saying that they were lost. They couldn't do anything. They'd almost given up, and they gave the game back. I had my heart ripped out Saturday at my son's football game when they lost in overtime, and I had the same thing happen yesterday. It's just when you've got your foot on somebody's throat in football, the last thing you do is let them get air, and that's what the Giants did. And as soon as that air crept in, it gave life to the Broncos, and it's all coaching. I mean, the prevent. I could talk for the next half hour about Bowen and his strategies and how they played soft. But I'd love to say it's just one of those games and one of those anomalies, but there's probably another game like that in there for the season for the Giants. They'll win a few more games. They'll probably end up with 7-10. I wouldn't be surprised. But I think the writing is on the wall now after this. It wasn't quite a primetime game. If it was a primetime game, if it was on last night or tonight, and they did that, I think heads would have rolled. They were kind of lucky they were in that 4 window with some great, the Cowboys game. So they kind of got lost a little bit in the mix, but I think the writing's on the wall for this regime, and I'm not gonna say any more about it. It's just another long, a long line of terrible defeats for the Giants, and I hope they start fading away in the future.
Oh, and look, and shout out to Boyle Jr. as well. We saw some of that game over the weekend. You were kind enough to share the link, and shout out to him and all the Jackets who left it all out in the field. We're proud of you, buddy, and you'll be back. You will be back. And we'll be back right after this break.
Great odds, you're in control. You always bet responsibly, and you're not afraid to choose alternatives. That's why you bet with quinnbet. Build your own unique football bets with Create a Bet. Winning team, first goal scorer, number of goals, the possibilities are endless. And with a 4-star Trustpilot customer service rating, why not give quinnbet a shot? quinnbet, we bet you love it.
We'll get to Cowboys and Commanders in just a second, but wanted to get to some of the messages first. Shane, on his way back from Kansas City, is in Charlotte Airport and sends his greetings. Safe home, Shane. Safe travels. Barry Adams says hello from a less glamorous Rathcoole. That's still a beautiful spot. Don't be too downbeat on it. And Rory saying, obviously loyal and regular viewer and listener. Rory saying good evening, especially to Shane and Charlotte. Great to have you folks on and can rely on the Monday evening recap. Greatly appreciated all the efforts to put these shows on. Rory, it's for you and everyone listening and watching that we're doing it. We greatly appreciate your support. Without that, we wouldn't be here, and we are conscious and grateful above all for that privilege. Right, Cowboys Commanders, big divisional game, Kieran O'Donovan, in the NFC East, especially with the Giants dropping that one in Denver that we just spoke about. Dallas were keen to take advantage of that. CeeDee Lamb back, and you wondered how the whole CeeDee Lamb George Pickens dynamic would work. Was George Pickens only able to succeed when he was out of the shadow of CeeDee Lamb? That was not the case. That Dallas offense is just so watchable, so entertaining, so explosive every week, almost as good as their defense is bad, which is why they're the best to watch in football right now.
Yeah, and like George Pickens, he picked up where he left off. He'd 82 yards. He was missing a touchdown. I had him for a touchdown last night. Of course, he let me down there, but no, himself and CeeDee complemented each other. But I'm going to spend some time and just give Dak Prescott his flowers this evening. That was, I think, it was the 4th consecutive game that Dak Prescott threw 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and I think he's in good company. There's very few quarterbacks in history have done that. He's proving week on week that he's one of the most complete quarterbacks in football at the moment. He's having one of the best seasons of a QB in the league, and he's definitely in MVP contention. He was the one who drove it for the Cowboys last night. And look, my viewership of this was patchy at best with my traveling back, so I'm not going to get into the devil of the detail too much. But on the Washington side of things, one thing that I did take note of was the defensive front, the secondary for Washington. It looked that little bit off. I think we talked about it in the playoffs last year about Marshawn Lattimore and the fact that he looked a little bit beyond his best, or more than a little bit beyond his best. And I saw, he was cooked a couple of times last night.
Yeah, Marshawn Lattimore, he's getting roasted week in, week out.
Yeah. I think that's an element of the Commanders' roster, I suppose, that was in question. You know, those guys that are 1 year older this season, as good as they were last year as a roster.
It's the sprinkling of rookie fairy dust can give you a false impression of where the Commanders are at. Like they're actually a very much a win now all in roster, and it looks like some of those guys are peaked.
Yeah, and look, and not to bring up painful wounds again, Kieran, but it kind of it magnifies that loss for the Giants last night, because that division is it's not panning out the way it looked that it would. You know, the Commanders are looking, I'm not going to say they're looking terrible, but they're looking so beatable and average at the moment. And the Cowboys have had
lost to the Bears last week, for God's sake.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, they're it's a division that's just it's not nobody's taking the bull by the horns. The Eagles have looked far from perfect as well. So every loss in that division is it looks like an opportunity lost. But Cowboys well worth their money last night.
And we saw Jaden Daniels again struggling injury-wise, Kieran Boyle, and that's clearly the biggest concern that the Commanders are going to have right now, because when Marcus Mariota came on, he did Marcus Mariota things and not the good Marcus Mariota things.
No, and it's a concern I had about Daniels from last year too. Slight frame, but he got away with it last year. He had an O-line that kept him upright. But he's barely 200, and he's kind of slight. And when the big 330-pound dudes land on you, where they start knocking you around, it doesn't feel good. So you're right. When Mariota came in, I
hate being knocked around by 330-pound dudes.
I know, it's no fun at all. The effect that Mariota had, it kind of took the air out of the Washington kind of, I don't know, their confidence. I mean, but you got to say on the other side, they'd be banged up by injuries so bad. I mean, they had no McLaurin, no Noah Brown. Debo didn't make the game. I mean, they were ending up with Jalen Lane, Chris Moore. I mean, even Robbie, whatever his name is now, Chosen Adam, whatever his name is now, they used to play with the Cardinals. But I mean, like Kieran said, this was all about Dak and the Cowboys. They're probably not going to make the playoffs. They'll probably fall a game or two short. But damn it, they are entertaining as hell. And I mean, they outgained Washington 409 yards to 341. I knew this was going to be a shootout, because this is just two teams that have defenses at a premium here. Where we're going to throw the ball and we're going to throw it off, and Dak is just putting up great numbers. He's doing what he does best, and now he gets CD Lamb back as well as George Pickens. I mean, that's two phenomenal weapons right there. And what I thought was going to be the Achilles heel of the Cowboys this year, they seem like they might have figured it out a little bit with Javonte Williams, 116 yards with a touchdown. And I mean, as well as Deron Bland stepping up as well. They needed him the last couple of weeks, but I'm not saying it's all coming together for the Cowboys, because there's frailties and there's problems across the field. But I mean, they are entertaining as hell. And I tell you, the Fox and NBC people are probably scrambling to see if they can move some of those flex games up and get them on primetime, because they are, I mean, with CD and Pickens out there, this touchdown is just waiting to happen.
And you're also looking at Brian Schottenheimer and saying, the guy knows how to coach. Like he's definitely earned himself a longer stint than one season in Dallas, no matter what happens.
Yeah, I mean, at this stage, I think regardless of how things went, he's definitely going to have in next year. I mean, I know Jerry's getting up there, but he's got a soft spot for the Schottenheimer family. He was going to give him a little bit more time, but wild card's probably not out of the equation just yet. I mean, they're 3-3-1. I mean, if they get to 6-4-1 in a couple of weeks, that's when people start talking. I still think they're too soft on defense, and you're not going to win shootouts every week. I mean, I know they kind of put Washington to bed fairly early, but still, I mean, putting up 44 points, that's no mean feat. And they did ship 22 to I mean, what are Washington right now? They're kind of middle of the table. But it's another great Dak performance. He's definitely enjoying having those weapons back. And we see Jerry in the box. He's loving life right now. So it's a good week for the Cowboys. I still don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but they're going to make things interesting in November, December. And I think they're definitely going to be flexed out of some of those 1:00 games into a Sunday night game here or there.
Kieran Donovan, it was a good week for former Cowboy Micah Parsons as well. Probably his best week so far with Green Bay. He racked up 3 sacks against the Cardinals, but the Packers needed every single one of them. And I would love you to help me make sense of this Green Bay team, because I'm watching them and I'm going, what you wouldn't do to have that roster. They look like a complete team in many respects, are not too far off it. They have everyone in the right place. They got great coaching. And yet, they're winning games. Of course, they're on top of the NFC North. They've only lost one game all season. So I'm not trying to be down on them here, but it could be so much better.
Yeah, and I again, for the second week in a row, I don't want to sound like the spoiled fan, but you're right. And the problem is they had 6 sacks last night, and they were not just the sacks, but the pressures that Michael Parsons lived in the backfield last night. He was immense. He was absolutely quality from start to finish. The problem is when you push the quarterback back, and when you push him back again, and you get a tackle for a loss or a sack, and then you give a team third and long, and just completely miss your assignments in the in the secondary. I
was singing away to myself, like, there's only one guy you really, really, really need to watch in the Cardinals, and it's Trey McBride. You're like, where did you go, young Trey McBride? You're in the end zone and you're open wide.
I think it was Kieran used to talk about Travis Kelce. Somewhere out there, Travis Kelce is open. I love that phrase you used to use. I think Trey McBride is feeling the same.
One was my favorite one. Is Megatron be down there somewhere? You're like, just throw the ball up.
But like the first one looked so bad, like the Trey McBride touchdown. I was watching again in the airport. I couldn't see it for very, very clearly, but the first DB just bumped him and left him off as if to say, there's someone behind me, someone's going to pick him up. Next thing you see him standing on his own in the end zone for what looked like an eternity, and the ball just fell to him under absolutely no pressure. And I mean, even if it was a contested catch, you'd struggle to beat Trey McBride. At least put him under some kind of pressure. But it was a frustrating game watching that secondary, and it's frustrating at the moment watching the Packers again because of everything you're saying. It's what they could be versus what they're showing themselves to be every week. It's these little moments every week that are kind of causing you to scratch your head and say, look,
they frustrate me. I know I shouldn't love them as much as Ryan's always laughing at me saying, you're a Bears fan, you're supposed to hate the Packers. Well, I just love watching that Matt LaFleur coached offense, and like it's just ingenious, and it's the genius of it is simplicity, how quickly he gets guys open. Like Tucker Kraft, doesn't matter who he plays, doesn't matter how much tape you have on him, he's always able to spring him open with these little simple moves, little simple rubs, the way he combines Musgrave and Kraft, the way he gets guys blocking. It's a joy to watch.
And what I liked about last night as well is that when you look at the box score, because it was frustrating to me listening to media across the board in the last few weeks, and people were really high on Jordan Love because of his numbers. But I was saying that there was these moments in games were killing us from Jordan Love, as I shouldn't say us, and as speaking objectively as a
no cheering in the press box
as a pundit here. But I was frustrated by that kind of lack of insight in terms of how he was, these little moments as a guy who now should be considered as a top tier quarterback was costing them games. But what I did like last night is, even though the numbers weren't gaudy, he did have it when he had to have it. And on third down and on fourth down, I thought he was very good from what I saw last night. I mean, he didn't have Josh Jacobs running up and down the field last night. He had to get the ball to his receivers. And to be fair to LaFleur, he was brave enough in going for it in 4th and 2. And they got, the defense got that 4th down stop as well when they had to have it. I mean, you did see something that you wanted to see last night from the Packers, is the fact that they trailed the entire game until the end. They didn't get the lead until the 4th quarter. They stayed at it. They got their scores when they absolutely had to have it. And on the other side, it was Trey McBride, and it was the Cardinals staying in a 1-score game again, but just coming out the wrong side of it. And the one insight, or the question I'd pose after last night is in what world is there a quarterback controversy now in Arizona? Because I thought Jacoby Brissett was pretty good last night, and I think they look like a more balanced team with him under center, and that's not because I've been hard on Kyler Murray, but I just think they look like a more balanced team with that kind of pocket quarterback that it might be enough to ask a question of the coaching staff to see, are they a better team with him under center?
It's not a quarterback controversy in the traditional sort, but if we talk about, you just put something in my mind there, Kieran, and throw this across to you, Kieran Boyle. If you look at the Vikings and dropped the game at home against the Eagles, helped the Eagles stop their skid. The Eagles didn't look perfect, but they did the things that the Eagles do. They're so talented. They can get guys in the right position to make plays on both sides of the ball, and they can kill you if you're going to let them hang around, as the Vikings did. But Vikings have Carson Wentz under center. JJ McCarthy's played precisely 1 quarter of decent football so far this season before getting injured. They're watching Sam Darnold tearing it up. They're watching Daniel Jones tearing it up. They're watching Aaron Rodgers tear it up. All guys who could be playing in Minnesota for a roster that is otherwise set up to win now but are not playing there because the coaching staff and the GM decided not to go that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that's the other thing. I mean, we talked about who is this team right now in the Falcons. Who is the Vikings team? I mean, what's their identity? It's not a typical kind of Justin Jefferson season. Carson Wentz, is he really out there inspiring people and leading the team? It's maybe a couple of years past his sell by date, but I mean, they had the Eagles yesterday. They really did. I mean, they had them on the ropes. That Hawkinson catch. I mean, we heard him after the game say, I saw Justin Jefferson get that catch called before, so I don't know what's going on. They went to New York, et cetera, et cetera. It's it's one of those games that
you got to feel for the poor big white guy. That is the most athletic thing he will ever do in his life.
I know.
Get the catch.
He made a great effort though. I mean, it's so hard making a catch and making sure you keep possession of the ball, landing on AstroTurf or field turf, whatever they call it. But they did give them the best shot. And the Eagles, I mean, it's wild how they just keep Saquon in reserve, 44 yards in total, and then Hurts just decides, you know what, today I'm going to throw it for 326 yards, and I'm going to spray it out to AJ Brown. AJ Brown's not going to break a sweat. He's going to make phenomenal catches everywhere, and Devontae Smith's going to lose his head and just go crazy. I mean, it's another example of the Eagles, death by 1,000 cuts almost. We've seen them bludgeon people with the run game, which has not happened at all this year. And we've seen Hurts kill people with his feet. And now he's just deciding, you know what, this week I'm going to start flying it out to the wide receivers. And it's the Patullo kind of noise died down yesterday after what we saw. But I mean, AJ Brown, 121 yards, 2 TDs. He is just, some of the catches he makes it's almost effortless. Just phenomenal performances. And Devonta Smith went off for 183 yards and a touchdown too. So that's what they got. But with all of that, the Vikings were still in with a shout. And maybe with a different quarterback, maybe with a healthy McCarthy, they could have kept it a little bit closer. And before the Eagles really just decided to take off and put this one to bed. But I mean, the McCarthy situation right now, I don't know if he was almost ready. They weren't going to risk it against that Eagles front four. Maybe they were going to give him a softer kind of a less intense kind of reintroduction back to the league. But they could have used him out there yesterday. I think Wentz he's just really treading water until McCarthy's ready to come back in. And he wasn't great yesterday. I mean, he threw the ball 42 times, 2 interceptions. You got a couple of sacks. When you're playing somebody like the Eagles, you got to put in a cleaner performance than that. He was 26 of 42. And he's not exactly on wheels when he's out there. So he's a little lumbering, but you got to give it to the Eagles. It's just another road game and another, I won't say an easy win because for me, the outcome wasn't really in doubt. It was always going to be an Eagles win, just purely on talent alone. But that question there has to be there for O'Connell. Should I have started McCarthy if he was available? I think the days of seeing Wentz under center in the league this season are numbered. It could be it next week if it happens at all.
Kieran O'Donovan, you have to be doing some pretty special things in New England to break a record of Tom Brady's. Drake May broke his completion percentage record for single game yesterday, 90+% completion percentage, which is not very easily done in the NFL, to put it mildly. If you come out of a game with a 70% completion rate, you're very happy with your day's work as an NFL quarterback at any team. Drake May is doing some special things. The Patriots are doing some really special things right now. They're well ahead of where a lot of us thought they would be. Not Kieran Boyle. I'm not going to besmirch his name by overlooking the fact that he called them as a potential playoff team earlier on this year and said they were going to be really good. The Mike Vrabel revenge game in Tennessee goes precisely according to his plan. He rolls out of there with a big win. Patriots schedule, as we were saying last week, is opening up for them now. They've won a couple of tough ones, and now they have a much easier looking schedule. The path is clear for them to go to the playoffs.
And in fact, they probably should have won another one if you look back at that Steelers game as well. But we talked about whether there'd be a bounce in the sacking of Brian Callahan, but this was always going to be the Mike Vrabel game, because I think there was a lot more of an emotional bounce for the Patriots in bringing Mike Vrabel back to Tennessee. and that proved to be the case. You talk about completion percentage. I'm just going to throw a stat out there. Drake May had a QBR of 96.4, a passer rating of 135.9. Do you know who had a better passer rating or a better QBR? Josh Dobbs. He was 100%, 100 QBR, 1 for 1, 12 yards, no touchdowns, no interception, one throw, while the whole of New England held their breath while Drake May was in the medical tent last night. So, but no, this was a huge performance. And we talk about the Patriots. We've been talking about the Patriots for the last couple of weeks and how they needed to build on their performances week to week, and that's exactly what they're doing now. They're showing that level of consistency, that level of they seem to be a well-oiled machine, a well-coached team. I mean, you look at it, they did it across the board yesterday. 88. Ramondre Stevenson ran for 88 yards. They had 175 yards on the ground in total, 234 passing yards. Looking at the defense, they had 5 sacks. They were just on every side of the ball. They were value for money, and the Titans season just gets worse and worse as the year goes on.
It does, Kieran Boyle, which again makes us feel sorry once more for Cam Ward. This is the plight, unfortunately, more often than not, for the number 1 pick in the draft. QB goes into a terrible situation, coach gets fired, season is lost, and at one stage he went to throw a ball and just dropped it. It's one of the worst fumbles I've seen from a quarterback in a long time. Nothing is going right for the Titans right now. Even their best player, pass rusher Simmons, gets injured, and it's just all falling apart.
It is, and that play where he lost the ball, that was kind of symptomatic of his play with Miami. He was dashing and he was running around, and the ball would be hanging out there. But of course, he's not playing the ACC this year. He's playing in the NFC or the AFC East, and he's playing the NFL. So another rough outing for him. I mean, what did anybody else expect? I mean, he's coming up against a really tight Patriots defense right now. I mean, Clavon Chasen. I mean, when Gonzalez is back there, I mean, that's a huge threat at corner. He's a hugely physical cornerback as well. I mean, he did get a nice throw to DK, Chimere DK, I think you pronounce it. But that was just a little shimmer of light in an otherwise pretty bad performance by the Titans. I mean, normally we would expect a team that got that had the head coach fired, you would expect a little bump up or a little, but I mean, this team doesn't have the talent to put in any kind of improved performance. They're basically, I say it before, they're treading water right now. The team is fractured. Cam Ward is, he's going to be put together with glue by week 11, week 12. He's just going to be batted around the place. More sacks for him to deal with, more blows, more leaked, more A-gap busts from the O-line. But it all goes back to Vrabel. I mean, like Kieran said, this was the Vrabel revenge game. He's probably looking for the ghost of Ran Carthon around there somewhere to swing at. But it was just a great performance of the Patriots. It was a nice kind of soft landing for them to come into and come up against a Titans team that's really kind of on the ropes right now. Nothing on the ground for Tennessee. I mean, Pollard and Spears combined for 40 yards. That says it all right there. There's nothing for Cam Ward there's no outlet for him. And he's just going to get more and more frustrated. They've got to get him something. I think that the trade deadline is coming up soon. I don't think it's even worth for the Titans to do anything right now and just keep all that capital, keep that cap space, and keep that. They're going to have another top 5 draft pick. So it's just a rebuilding year. But it's tough to see Cam Ward, a guy who was so dashing in college last year, but he's playing with the big boys now, and the Pats are definitely the big boys. They, it's more of Diggs, Boutte, even Mac Hollins getting the action. Pop Douglas, local kid. It's always good to see him making plays. But like Kieran said, Drake May is, I had him on my fantasy team, so I was really happy. Just a lot of points and a great performance. But wishing better days for Cam Ward right now. I'm wishing a good performance and a good win soon, hopefully.
Last year's number 1 overall pick got his coach fired around about this time last year. Although that's probably slightly unfair on Caleb Williams. This time, things are trending a little bit better for the Chicago Bears, who've won 4 straight. Do you know what the Bears are doing? Do you know what we're doing? We're going streaking. We're going up through the quad into the gymnasium. Come on, everybody. Snoop a loop. Yes, I'm dropping the Frank the Tank because it's not going to get any better for the Bears this season. First time they've won four games in a row since 2018. This just doesn't happen in Chicagoland. So I'm sitting pretty. going to the Ravens on Sunday on the day of my birthday and getting absolutely torn apart is future Connor's problem. And I will be in tears when we next meet on Monday to recap Week 8 action. I've no doubt about that, but I'm going to relish it right now because the Bears, Kieran O'Donovan, are one of the form teams in the NFL right now. A couple of soft games in there. Obviously, they've had the Raiders. They caught the Commanders at the right time. And it wasn't always perfect against the Saints either. But there are some things starting to come together. The running game is working. Dennis Allen got a game ball from head coach Ben Johnson over the weekend for helping to mastermind the downfall of his former Saints team where he was sacked as head coach. He's with the Bears now as defensive coordinator. The Bears lead the league in takeaways. That's a stat that can change very, very quickly. And as we were saying earlier on with the Jacksonville Jaguars, when they stopped getting 2 or 3 interceptions a game, they stopped winning games. That can happen to the Bears just as easily, but they're certainly looking a lot better than they were in Week 1, which was the job of the new head coach coming in there to try and get things trending in the right direction 4 in a row now.
Yeah, and this wasn't the Caleb Williams game because if you look at his numbers, he was, he had a QBR of 19.8 and a passer rating of 61.7. He traded interceptions early doors with Spencer Rattler, and Spencer Rattler ended up with 3, and that was probably the big difference. But when I say it wasn't the Caleb Williams, it wasn't the Caleb Williams game. It was the DeAndre Swift, and it was the Bears defense game, and the Dennis Allen, as you rightly pointed out. If I'm a Bears fan, I'm really excited by that, and I'm saying that's brilliant because it doesn't have to be the Caleb Williams show. You don't have to have fireworks from your quarterback every week if you've got a full, complete, consistent team. And that was an amazing, it wasn't an amazing performance. I'm not going to build it up too much, but it was a really thorough professional performance, and it was a win that they should have gotten, and they did get, and they didn't let it slip out of their hands in any crazy, stupid way. So like the Bears are really, they're looking like a team that can be competitive in this division and beyond. I have to say one of my favorite plays of the night last night was the DeAndre Swift, his first touchdown, the cutback where he just sent everyone the wrong way. He sent the whole lot of the D line the wrong way, just strolled in. That was beautiful. It was a beautiful run.
Because they've been running strongly to the right and gaining yards all day long, and he knew exactly where the defense were going to try and cover him, and he just went the opposite way. As you say. He
fooled everyone.
Really, heads up play.
The Red Sea just parted. It was a brilliant design, and it was a great cut. And we talked about this, going back to the Packers a while ago. It's actually a pity because these are two teams who we're actually trying to find out who exactly both of these teams are and how good they can actually be. I'm disappointed that it's going to take such a long time for us to see them pit each other against each other, because the problem for the Packers at the moment is that they can't, you don't know whether they're going to be up for 1 week to the next, but they're always going to be up for the Bears, and the Bears are always going to be up for them. So you're really looking forward to see those two dueling in the, within the division.
Like one of the genius things about the way the schedule sets up, and we can quibble about how some teams have the big division, or some divisions have the big divisional rivalries out of the way almost indecently early. I mean, Kieran Boyle will know that the Giants play the Eagles on the 26th of October, and then that rivalry's done for the whole season. It seems really well too early for that to be over. Whereas in the NFC North, all the really spicy matchups are laid on. I mean, I was looking at the Bears schedule and, doing that horrible thing where it always goes wrong, where you're like, win, loss, win, loss. I have them in the playoffs at this stage. But looking at the last 3 games, the Bears play the Lions, the 49ers, and the Packers in their final 3 games. If you're looking for 2 or even 3 wins to get to the playoffs, that's not happening.
I did the exact same thing as you this evening. I looked, and five of the last 7 Packers games are within the division. So they've only 5 left, obviously. But it's this division is not going to be decided until the last few weeks of the league, which is fantastic. It's
still the only division in football with 4 teams that are at least 500 or better. 3 teams with winning records, and the Vikings now 3-3. Yeah,
and I think the Vikings are probably the one team that are in danger of maybe falling away, unless they can turn it around, unless they get a real bounce when JJ McCarthy comes back. And I hate bouncing between games again, but you mentioned a point about whether JJ McCarthy should have started. Really interesting listening to Jordan Rodriguez again this week, where she was really, really strong on the point that there should be no scenario where he's named as the backup to Carson Wentz. That if he's fit, he should be named as the starter. And if you're not sure about whether you want to start him, he needs to be listed as questionable, or it was because of his head.
I don't think there's a world in which Kevin O'Connell could do that either. Like, how could you give up on JJ McCarthy that easily? Because as we talked about earlier, you let Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones out of the building, and you pass on the chance to sign Aaron Rodgers.
And that's the whole point of it. That's what everybody said, is that Kevin O'Connell had it in his mind. He wants to develop his quarterback of the future, and that's what he wants to sink his teeth into. So he has to stay the course in that regard. But it might give them some turbulent times in Minnesota. But you never know. You just don't know. There's a long season. We're not even halfway there yet. So a lot of football to be played.
No, indeed. And that is our Week 7 recapped. We'll be back with our Thursday night football preview, and then we got our Week 8 preview on Thursday itself. And look forward to that. And in the meantime, have a lovely evening.